Imagine this, October 10th, 2016. Scientists gather, cameras flash, the Nobel Prize in Economics is announced, but suddenly, a 6-year-old Simpsons scene bursts back into global conversation. MIT professor Bengt Holmström's name echoes through Stockholm's Grand Hall, and instantly, fans everywhere whisper one outrageous thought. Wait, didn't Milhouse already predict this years ago? Picture it, an ordinary cartoon betting pool, Lisa, Martin, database, and Milhouse scribbling names, when one wild entry suddenly transforms from silly doodle into eerie prophecy years later. Bro, imagine pausing your TV on a Sunday night, zooming in on a cartoon notepad, and realizing a child genius nailed a future Nobel Prize. That's exactly what happened in Elementary School Musical, the season 22 opener, where kids stayed awake watching Nobel announcements like it was the Super Bowl of science. Homer's confused, Lisa's obsessed, Martin's competitive, but in the corner sits Milhouse, awkward, overlooked, yet holding the single piece of paper that would rewrite Simpsons history. On the sheet, scribbled predictions, chaotic guesses, fictional winners, but there it was, clear as day. Bengt Holmström marked under economics beside Milhouse's shaky handwriting. And when Stockholm's announcer revealed Holmström in 2016, that random scribble turned cosmic, like Springfield itself had reached forward through time and tapped humanity on the shoulder. It wasn't just one freak accident. This betting sheet held multiple ticking time bombs of truth, waiting patiently for real history to catch up with the yellow cartoon ink. Milhouse, mocked for decades as clueless, suddenly became the accidental oracle, proving that sometimes the biggest nerd in Springfield can outsmart even the most secretive scientific institutions. The wildest part, it wasn't even Holmström alone. 2 other names on that cartoon list would later blast into global headlines as Nobel winners, years ahead of time. Stanford's W.E. Moerner, master of super-resolved microscopy, sat quietly on Milhouse's list, years before Stockholm even knew his fluorescent magic would deserve a golden medal. And Database, the forgotten kid genius, casually circled Ben Feringa, whose molecular machines would later revolutionize chemistry, making him another Nobel champion born first inside Springfield's imagination. Bro, that's not guessing. That's a television comedy dropping Easter eggs so specific, scientists themselves were left shaking their heads, wondering who the real geniuses truly were. MIT publicly acknowledged it, tweeting screenshots, professors laughing, students gasping. Holmström's Nobel became not just a win for economics, but also a bizarre victory for animated prophecy. Stanford joined the party, celebrating Moerner's Simpsons shoutout, as if being picked by Milhouse became an unofficial second medal, half joke, half legitimate badge of cultural immortality. Meanwhile, Ben Feringa proudly taped that prediction sheet on his office door, turning a cartoon gag into a conversation starter about fate, science, and improbable storytelling. Suddenly, this wasn't just a quirky trivia fact. It was proof of something darker, stranger, a cartoon comedy somehow bending probability curves with creepy precision. But here's the kicker. This same sheet wasn't flawless, because right alongside Holmström's truth were errors, misfires, and impossible guesses that make the whole story even spookier. Which raises the question, were the Simpsons writers just hyper-informed researchers, or are we staring at the world's strangest case of animated time travel science fiction unfolding on TV? Now, here's where it gets juicier. Because the same prediction sheet that nailed Holmström, Moerner, and Feringa also included hilarious blunders that make the accurate picks even scarier. Martin proudly chose Jagdish Bhagwati for economics, a victory celebrated inside the episode. Yet in real life, Bhagwati never won, proving not every Springfield prophecy lands on target. Another slip? Oliver Williamson scribbled under physics, even though he had already received the economics Nobel a year earlier, making the list feel like part genius, part parody. These mistakes matter because they show the writers weren't omniscient gods, yet somehow the few hits they scored were so specific, the misses only amplify the mystery. Think about it, if every name had been wrong, no one would care, and if every name had been right, it would feel rigged. But this? Chillingly believable. The errors function like camouflage, blending the truth in with the noise, making the correct predictions look accidental until they detonated years later in Stockholm's hallowed halls. That's the conflict, coincidence versus conspiracy. Were Simpsons writers simply clever researchers, or did they somehow peek through a cultural crystal ball none of us were supposed to see? Remember, these weren't random pop stars or athletes. The sheet included heavyweight scientists whose research required elite knowledge just to comprehend, let alone forecast Nobel-level recognition years in advance. Dr. Simon Singh, author of The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets, argued many writers had advanced math or science backgrounds, fueling their eerie ability to spotlight future Nobelists. But still, bro, predicting who might win someday is one thing. Predicting the exact year Holmström would take the stage feels like script writing straight from fate's typewriter. Reddit users debated fiercely, some insisting Nobel fields are predictable, others countering that timing remains impossible, making Springfield's 6-year precision more disturbing than any mathematical insider trick. That's where the villain enters. The villain is chance itself, the statistical improbability that 3 out of 5 predictions on a cartoon notepad could later become Nobel laureates. Imagine hundreds of brilliant scientists worldwide competing quietly in labs, yet somehow Milhouse's shaky hand singled out the few who would soon shake the entire scientific establishment. The probability feels microscopic, like winning the lottery not once, not twice, but thrice. Except here, the winning numbers were whispered by Springfield's nerdiest, most ridiculed kids. Suddenly, fans started re-examining the series, frame by frame, hunting for hidden predictions, convinced the show's humor masked a pattern of uncanny glimpses into future history. And they found them. Donald Trump's presidency in 2000, Disney's 21st Century Fox buyout in 1998, smartwatches in 1995, each moment retroactively turning satire into documentary. The Nobel predictions stand apart though, because unlike Trump or tech gadgets, this wasn't extrapolation, it was scientific precision, far beyond pop culture trend spotting or political satire. Universities embraced the joke, newspapers screamed headlines, and suddenly Nobel Prize winners themselves were laughing nervously, realizing their cartoon cameos would follow them forever. For Holmström, Moerner, and Feringa, the Simpsons connection became inseparable from their Nobel legacy, proof that even in academia, Springfield's shadow loomed larger than expected. But here's the real twist. The errors, the successes, the pattern, they all suggest something bigger, something The Simpsons has been accused of countless times: prophetic storytelling disguised as comedy. When Bengt Holmström's Nobel was announced, MIT immediately acknowledged The Simpsons prediction, posting screenshots online transforming a 6-year-old cartoon gag into an institutional celebration of improbable foresight. Stanford University echoed the moment when W.E. Moerner won chemistry, even Moerner himself joking that being picked by Milhouse was almost as significant as Stockholm's golden recognition. Ben Feringa went further, keeping the Simpsons betting sheet on his office door for years, proudly embracing the cultural oddity as part of his Nobel Prize story. These reactions from world-class institutions demonstrated the cultural weight of Springfield's predictions, proving the scientific community itself recognized the bizarre intersection between popular comedy and serious academic achievement. Importantly, the betting sheet's mistakes, like Bhagwati's fictional win or Williamson's misplaced category, reinforced the authenticity of correct calls, making the accurate predictions stand out even more. Some names were even misspelled, such as Line Vestergaard Howe, further underscoring that the writers weren't scripting perfection, yet still managed to spotlight genuine Nobel-worthy scientists. Analysts noted, predicting Nobel Prizes is notoriously difficult, with hundreds of potential nominees and uncertain timing, making a 60% success rate statistically remarkable, bordering on impossible. Across 5 clear predictions, 3 materialized into real Nobel winners: Holmström, Moerner, and Feringa, placing The Simpsons in a category of predictive accuracy rarely achieved even by professional forecasters. Timing magnifies the improbability. These names were chosen when their research was recognized, but still years away from official prizes, making the precision even harder to dismiss as coincidence. This distinguishes the Nobel predictions from other famous Simpsons forecasts, since they required specialized scientific knowledge rather than simple cultural extrapolation or satirical exaggeration. Dr. Simon Singh highlighted this depth in his book, explaining that many Simpsons writers held advanced degrees in mathematics and science, which likely fueled their remarkable awareness of Nobel contenders. That educational background clarifies how fictional children in Springfield could casually name future laureates, with a level of insight that paralleled conversations inside academic circles. The Nobel Committee's choices are famously secretive until announcements, making the idea of a comedy show anticipating them years in advance both baffling and historically unprecedented. The evidence quickly spread, covered by news outlets, shared by universities, and embraced by laureates, transforming the Simpsons prediction into a cultural touchstone for science communication. These predictions remain part of the larger pattern that made The Simpsons legendary, a reputation built on forecasting everything from politics to technology with eerie accuracy. Unlike predictions of Trump's presidency or Disney's corporate acquisitions, the Nobel Prize calls stand out as uniquely intellectual, rooted in the scientific establishment rather than popular trends. Fans now scrutinize Simpsons episodes carefully, convinced hidden predictions remain buried in old storylines, awaiting the day real-world events confirm Springfield's accidental glimpses into tomorrow. The Nobel case remains the sharpest example, showing how cartoon comedy, academic research, and probability theory collided to produce a story too strange for even science fiction. With 3 confirmed Nobel hits across economics and chemistry, The Simpsons' legacy expanded from entertainment into history, forcing scholars and scientists alike to acknowledge its predictive power. And so, the evidence stands complete. A single cartoon betting pool became an improbable cultural artifact, cementing The Simpsons' Nobel Prize predictions as one of television's most extraordinary achievements.